Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, drafting this intensely angry email to someone, maybe a boss or, a relative, knowing full well you are never going to send it?
Oh, yeah. Your heart is just pounding, your jaw is totally clenched, and your bloodstream is flooded with stress hormones over a conflict that is, well, taking place entirely inside your own head.
Right. It's like you feel trapped in this invisible, exhausting cage. You wake up stuck in a cycle of daily anxiety or this inescapable mental rut. And it feels like no matter how hard you struggle against it or how many self-help routines you try to adopt, you just cannot find the exit door.
Which is incredibly frustrating.
It really is. So, if you are quietly nodding your head right now, welcome to today's deep dive. We are going to reverse engineer the underlying source code of this mental cage. And we're pulling from some incredibly dense, transformative insights laid out by a Buddhist practitioner named Consultant Benny, who is responding to the profound questions of a seeker named Venerable Ivy.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating deconstruction of how our minds actually build these invisible prisons. This material, which comes from Buddhist practice incorporated in Australia and was brought to life by a production from Notebook of Dawn, it moves entirely past standard coping mechanisms.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it actually dissects the architecture of human consciousness itself to show us how we manufacture our own suffering.
Exactly.
So before we can step out of this cage, we have to look at what the bars are actually made of. I mean, most people assume they are just stuck in bad habits, right? They think, I just have a habit of overthinking, or I have a habit of getting angry.
Right, which is a very passive way to view the mechanics of the mind. In our everyday language, a habit is something static. It's, a groove worn into your routine, like taking a specific route to work.
Yeah, just autopilot.
But the framework we're looking at today uses a much more dynamic, almost biological term to describe what is happening in your brain. They don't call them habits at all. They call them seeds.
Seeds. Because a habit is basically a dead trace of the past. But a seed has a biological imperative to grow. It actually wants to take root, expand, and spread.
It's alive.
Exactly. Consultant Benny gives this really visceral foodie example that I love. Imagine you go to a restaurant and try a completely new dish, and it is absolutely delicious. And that split second, your brain slaps a label on it, like, good, I want more of this.
Right. The tag is applied.
Yeah. And if that were just a static habit, you might just, I don't know, order it again if you happen to find yourself at that same restaurant a year later.
But because it's a seed, it doesn't wait around passively. It sprouts.
Yeah.
You go home and you start searching for recipes at midnight. You watch cooking tutorials. You start planning your whole weekend around finding those specific hard-to-get ingredients.
You become obsessed.
Exactly. The original momentary experience aggressively expands and just colonizes your attention.
Okay, so to understand why this happens, we really need to look at how this philosophy breaks down consciousness itself. The text talks a lot about the sixth consciousness and the eighth consciousness, which, well, immediately begs the question, what happened to consciousnesses 1 through 5?
That's a fair question. Think of the first 5 consciousnesses as your basic sensory inputs: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. These are like all-weather radar scanners that are constantly sweeping your environment.
Just always on, scanning for targets.
They never turn off.
Yeah.
Then the sixth consciousness is your active thinking mind, the part that processes those sensory inputs and assigns meaning to them. And the eighth consciousness, that's the basement.
The basement?
Yeah, it is the infinite hard drive storing billions of dormant seeds from every single experience, preference, fear, and judgment you've ever had.
Oh, wow. So if our senses are constantly grabbing and these seeds are constantly growing, does that explain why our brains feel like an engine that just can't be shut off?
It perfectly explains it. The radar, the first 5 consciousnesses, picks up a signal. Say your ears hear a sarcastic tone from a coworker. That acoustic signal drops down into the basement, hits the eighth consciousness, and waters a specific dormant seed of, say, insecurity or defensiveness.
And the conditions are perfectly met.
Right. That seed instantly breaks through the soil, sprouts, and violently hijacks your sixth consciousness, your active thinking mind. You don't consciously decide to get angry at the coworker's tone. You just feel a sudden wave of defensive rage.
And your mind is immediately off to the races, planning your verbal counterattack. Because the sensory radar never stops scanning, the seeds just never stop getting watered.
Exactly. The stimulus forces the seed to sprout.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If these seeds gather this much momentum over decades, building this massive tangled root system in our internal hard drive, well, what happens to all that force when the physical body, the hardware, eventually shuts down?
This is where consultant Benny introduces the security door and key analogy, which is just brilliant for explaining the continuity of consciousness beyond physical death. When a new biological life begins, the DNI provided by the parents is basically just a temporary construction key.
Like when a contractor is building a house and uses a cheap metal key to get in, paint the walls, wire the electricity, that kind of thing. It just sets up the physical frame.
Exactly. But the homeowner's official master key, that is your eighth consciousness, that massive collection of past seeds, deeply ingrained fears and preferences, the moment the consciousness inserts into the new biological frame, it clicks into place.
And instantly overrides the temporary construction key.
You got it. The software overwrites the hardware. It takes full control of the new body, dictating the personality, the unexplained phobias, the innate talents. The software doesn't just run on the machine, it completely shapes how the machine operates.
That is wild. And because the software, this collection of seeds, is independent of the temporary hardware, it actually survives physical death.
Yes. The source discusses the intermediate state between lives, which is known in Buddhist texts as the bardo.
Right, the bardo.
In this state, consciousness is completely stripped of the physical body. It's compared to the wind.
You can't see the wind. I mean, it has no physical form at all.
Yet a hurricane possesses the force to uproot massive, ancient trees. The momentum of your mental seeds doesn't magically evaporate just because the biological brain stops functioning. The obsessions, the grievances, the deep-seated anxieties, they carry a hurricane-like force all on their own.
Which brings us to that crazy movie reference in the text. They talk about a character named Doran from a film called Crossroads Pig. Doran is dead. He has no physical body. He exists in this intermediate ghost-like state.
Yeah.
But he spends his entire time obsessively trying to deliver medicine and bitterly complaining about other people. He is entirely trapped by his lingering mental seeds, acting out his earthly anxieties without an earth to actually act them out on.
He is caught in a pure feedback loop of his own mental programming.
Wait, hold on. This is terrifying if you really think about it. If Doran is stuck looping his anxieties without a physical brain to process them, no cortisol, no adrenaline, no nervous system, that implies our anxieties aren't tied to physical reality at all.
Right.
Wait, so even without a physical body to feel stress, we could theoretically end up as ghosts trapped in our own endless anxiety loops.
That is exactly what the material is warning us about. If you spend your entire life feeding the seeds of anger, resentment, or anxiety, that momentum has absolutely nowhere to go when you die. You become a prisoner of your own mental software, relentlessly driven by forces you never bothered to dismantle while you had the chance.
Which means we desperately need to figure out how to dismantle them right now while we are still here.
We really do.
We have to trace this back to the origin. Where do these obsessive definitions of what is good or bad actually come from in the first place?
To understand that, we need to look at a concept the text calls the emptiness of all dharmas.
Okay, let's define dharmas real quick so we don't lose anyone.
Good call. In this context, dharma simply refers to all phenomena. Every object, event, thought, or situation in the universe is a dharma.
Got it.
The text argues that all dharmas are fundamentally empty. Now, emptiness doesn't mean a literal void or that things don't physically exist. It means they are empty of inherent built-in meaning. A storm isn't inherently evil. A piece of gold isn't inherently valuable. The universe just is. It is entirely neutral.
And it is our sixth consciousness, that active processing mind, that forcefully slaps fake labels onto reality.
Exactly. The text calls this forced labeling one thought of ignorance. Just one thought. And we fabricate an entire reality of suffering.
The Newbie soup example from the source makes this incredibly tangible.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Newbie soup is a traditional dish in certain regions, but objectively, what is it? It is a soup made from half-digested grass and gastric acid taken directly from a cow's stomach.
Which sounds intense.
From a strictly chemical and biological standpoint, it is just plant fiber mixed with digestive fluids. That is the objective reality of the Dharma, the phenomenon itself.
But if I put a steaming bowl of that in front of you right now, your sixth consciousness would instantly scream, "Disgusting, vile, get this away from me." You would have a profound physical aversion to it.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be revolted.
But to the locals who were raised with this dish, who associate it with comfort and celebration, well, their sixth consciousness slaps a totally different label on it. They tag it as an irresistible delicacy. They literally start salivating.
And the soup itself didn't change at all.
Not one bit. The physical matter in the bowl is identical. The suffering or the pleasure derived from the soup is 100% manufactured by the observer's mind.
That reminds me of the story of Yajnadatta from the Surangama Sutra, which consultant Benny highlights. Yajnadatta looks in a mirror one morning, and for some delusional reason, he can't see his head in the reflection. He genuinely believes his head is gone, and he runs screaming through the streets in absolute terror. His heart rate was probably through the roof, he was sweating, he was in pure panic, his agony was entirely real, but the cause of his suffering was a complete fabrication. His head was on his shoulders the whole time.
The mind's ability to generate visceral biological terror based on a complete illusion is just staggering.
Okay, I get the soup label because food is clearly subjective, and I get the mirror delusion because it's a literal trick of the mind. But let me push back on this on behalf of the listener for a second.
Sure, go for it.
What if I walk outside right now and smash my toe violently on a jagged rock? I mean, that is not a label my sixth consciousness just invented. My toe is bleeding, it's throbbing. That is a real physical pain, not a fake label.
That is a great point, and the material brilliantly parses this exact distinction by separating the event into two distinct parts, the first arrow and the second arrow.
Okay, the first arrow.
The physical nerve response, the actual pain of your toe hitting the rock, that is the first arrow. It's a biological reality. The body senses physical damage and sends a pain signal to protect you.
You can't avoid the first arrow. The rock is hard, the toe is soft.
Exactly. But the physical pain of stubbing your toe usually peaks and starts to subside relatively quickly. What happens next is where the trouble starts. Your internal monologue kicks in.
Oh, right, the "I am so unlucky" script.
Yes. Why does this always happen to me? The person who left this rock here is evil. My entire day is ruined. That entire sprawling narrative, the anger, the victimhood, the projection into the future, that is the second arrow and the third arrow.
That prolonged suffering is entirely a product of the sixth consciousness slapping labels on the event.
Yeah.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the physical rock.
The rock didn't attack you. It was just a rock occupying space.
Right.
You are generating the misery by slapping a massive narrative onto a momentary physical sensation.
So, understanding that our suffering comes from fake labels is great in theory. But how does the listener, who has a stressful job and family pressures and real-world problems, actually stop their brain from generating these labels? How do we practically unplug this power source?
The material offers a really specific technical solution. First, acknowledge what you cannot change. You cannot turn off your first 5 consciousnesses. Your eyes and ears will keep receiving data.
And you cannot erase the 8th consciousness either, right? The hard drive will keep storing data.
Correct. The biological hardware is fixed. Your only point of leverage is a first principle intervention on your 6th consciousness, the label maker. You must train yourself to look at things without the cultural, emotional, or evolutionary filters.
So first principle thinking, like Elon Musk talks about, just breaking things down to their absolute base physical reality.
Exactly. The soup is just grass and acid. The designer clothes are just woven fibers. The angry email from your boss is just pixels on a screen representing a temporary emotional state of another human being. It doesn't inherently mean you are worthless or that your life is over.
Stripping away the narrative, there is this striking analogy from consultant Benny that really locks this in. We tend to view our daily troubles and our karma as rocks falling from the sky. We feel like victims of a barrage just trying to dodge the impacts. But the text says they are not falling rocks at all.
No, they are potted plants.
Potted plants. I love that.
Think about a potted plant sitting in your living room. It cannot survive on its own. It doesn't have access to groundwater or rain.
Yes.
If you stop watering it, if you stop fertilizing it, it doesn't matter how big or intimidating the plant is, it will naturally wither and die.
So what does this all mean for us? When we lie awake at night, obsessing over a criticism or a financial fear, we think we are actually solving the problem. We think we are doing the work. But actually, we are just plugging our anxiety into the wall. Our attention is the electricity. We are charging the battery of our own misery.
That aligns perfectly with the directive from the Surangama Sutra, cited in the material, which says, abandon the arising and perishing. Keep the true and eternal.
Abandon the arising and perishing.
Right. These fleeting thoughts, these temporary labels of good and bad, they arise and they perish. They are temporary by nature. You must stop supplying power to them. When you catch yourself spinning a narrative, recognize it as a second arrow. Acknowledge the potted plant, but just refuse to water it. Withdraw your attention.
If we successfully cut the power to our anxieties, what does that liberated state of mind actually look and feel like?
The text provides a really beautiful analogy for this, the mirror. Imagine a perfectly clean mirror. If something ugly or terrifying is placed in front of it, the mirror reflects a perfectly clear image of that ugly thing. It doesn't deny reality.
It doesn't pretend the ugly thing isn't there.
Exactly, but the glass itself does not become ugly. And when the ugly thing leaves, the mirror doesn't try to hold on to the image. It doesn't trace the outline and say, I wish that stayed, or I am terrified that might come back.
He just lets it go.
Conversely, if something beautiful appears, it reflects it perfectly, but when the beautiful thing passes, the mirror doesn't grieve. It just returns to being a clear mirror. Your goal is to be the clear mirror, not the image trapped inside it.
That is such a powerful image, and the source explains that when this is achieved, the dust of the senses and the delusions just peels away instantly, revealing true, pure awareness.
It's not a gradual scrubbing, it's a sudden realization. You still interact with the world, you feel compassion, you solve problems, but you are no longer tossed around by the hurricane of your own labels.
Which brings it all home to Consultant Benny's ultimate plot twist. As Venerable Ivy lamented at the beginning of the text, we often feel like we are the difficulty. We feel locked in a cage. But the shocking truth is, the door to the cage was never locked.
It has always been wide open.
You are simply gripping the iron bars of your own good and bad labels, squeezing them as tight as you can, screaming to the world that you can't get out.
We are our own jailers.
We really are. So just to recap the journey we've been on today, we realized our habits are actually living seeds. We learned that our consciousness is a master key that survives our physical hardware.
We recognize that our realities, even the newbie soup, are just fake labels.
And we learned how to finally unplug the power cord from our anxieties.
As we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you with a final thought experiment to ponder in the dark tonight. Imagine if tomorrow morning, a microchip in your brain was reset, and this reset completely deleted your definition of your biggest current struggle.
Completely wiped it out.
Yeah, no judgment of what makes it bad, no fear of loss associated with it at all. If that mental label was truly gone, would that crisis actually still exist in the physical world, or would it vanish like a dream?
That is a wild thought. And building on that, if the cage door is already unlocked, what if the immense, exhausting effort you are exerting to escape your problems is the exact thing keeping your hands wrapped so tightly around the iron bars? What happens if you just, I don't know, relax your grip?
Just let go.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take a deep breath, loosen your grip, and we will see you next time.